Hi, I am Melissa, and I am an alcoholic and an addict, and I am back to read um, the fourth step out of the 12 and 12. And this is made a searching and fearless more inventory of ourselves. I'm not reading the whole thing. I just highlighted some things that were important, um, which is still quite a bit. So I'm going to get started. All right. We want to find exactly how, when, and where our natural desires have warped us. We wish to look squarely at the unhappiness this has caused others and ourselves. By discovering what our emotional deformities are, we can move toward their corrections. Sorry about that. Without a willing and persistent effort to do this, there can be little sobriety or contentment for us. Without a searching and fearless moral inventory, most of us have found that the faith which really works in daily living is still out of reach. Suppose suppose a person place sex desire suppose a person places sex desire ahead of everything else. In such a case, this imperious urge can destroy his chances for material and emotional security as well as his standing in the community. How frequently we see a frightened human being determined to depend completely upon a stronger person for guidance and protection. Codependency is a big thing. This weak one failing to meet life's responsibilities with his own resources never grows up. So, example, now I had good parents, okay, but my mom, she sheltered me, and I did not know how to live until she died, and I'm not blaming her, I'm not doing that, but because of that, and I didn't try to thrive when she was on Earth, okay, I didn't learn any life lessons like how to pay a bill, that I should have a job, that I shouldn't jump from one guy to another. You get the point. I should count on myself instead of being solely dependent on somebody where when they're gone, I don't feel like I can breathe. Okay. That is codependency in its strongest form. Okay. In uh, delusionment and helplessness are his lot. In time, all his protectors either flee or die, and he is once more left alone and afraid, creating fear. That's that fear inventory, and that's what I went through. Um, is my personal experience. Uh, I started having these panic attacks, and it was because my mom wasn't there, and she was the one. I was codependent on her. So when she wasn't there, I had no idea what to do. My life was seriously a disaster. So I clung to the next person. And then when that went south, I had to find somebody else to cling to. And I lived my life like that for 20 years. It was horrible. Anyways, so we have also seen men and women who go power mad, who devote themselves to attempting to rule their fellows, because people love to have control of everything. These people often throw to the winds every chance for legitimate security and a happy family life. Whenever a human being becomes a battleground for the instincts, there can be no peace. So, like, it talks about in the big book being the actor and being the puppeteer or the puppet master. If everybody would just do everything my way, the whole entire world would be happy, when really nobody even likes you because of that. So, but that is not all of the danger. Even or every time a person imposes his instincts unreasonably upon others, unhappiness follows. Like I just said, if the pursuit of wealth tramples, sorry, nobody like ever calls me that much. Um, every time a person, okay, if the pursuit of wealth tramples upon people who happen to be in the way, then anger, jealousy, and revenge are likely to arouse. If the sex runs riot, there is a similar uproar. Demands made upon other people for too much attention protection, and love can only invite domination or revulsion in the protectors themselves. Two emotions quite as unhealthy as the demands which evoke them. So I give you my example. I dated a guy, okay, um, and how do I put this? He was the provider of, the habit that I had. Okay, so with that said, his ultimate goal was one thing, and if his sexual desires were not met, my life was hell. And, and that is exactly what it talks about right here. Demands made upon people for too much attention. If sex runs riot, there's a similar uproar. And that causes people like, and I'm not, like I said, not an angel, right? But I also, I used that for a tool. That was my manipulation tactic. But when somebody just like depletes you in that area, you resent that later in life when you're sober and finding your way. So it kind of destroys any urge to have a healthy relationship with anybody that's really worthy of your time. So we have drunk to drown feelings of fear, frustration, and depression. We have drunk to escape the fear, the guilt of passions, and then drunk again to make more passions possible. Like make more passions possible. Um, so this is not just about drinking, okay? This is recovery. I am only reading this because it helps me to word the things that I want to say. Because some people may have um, addictions to shopping, okay? And when I talk about things, just replace alcohol with those addictions, okay? It can be addictions to, like I said, shopping, gambling, sex, porn, people. Um, your go to emotion could be anger. That in itself is an addiction. It's a secondary emotion, in case you didn't know that. We choose that. That's not even it. It sounds crazy, but I mean, it's psychologically proven that anger is a secondary emotion and we have the choice to be angry. Whatever. It's true though. Anyways, moving forward. Okay. This perverse soul sickness is not pleasant to look upon. If temperamentally we are on the depressive side, now here's another one, the depressed drunk, the one who is sad all the time. We are apt to be swamped with guilt and self-loathing. We wallow in this messy bog, often getting a mishappen with and painful pleasure out of it. As we morbidly pursue this melancholy activity, we may sink to such a point of despair that nothing but oblivion looks possible as a solution. Here, of course, we have lost all perspective and therefore all genuine humility, for this is pride in reverse. This is not a moral inventory at all. This is the very process by which the depressive has so often been led to the bottle and extinction. So, this is somebody that always says, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Is everything okay? It's that person. And, like, and when they drink, they call you crying. And, you know, those are also the people that we have to be careful because a lot of those people are the ones who do commit suicide. And it's a very sad situation, but that is reality. And it's happening more and more every day. If, however, our natural disposition is inclined to self righteousness or grandiosity, our reaction will be just the opposite. We will be offended at AA's suggested inventory. No doubt we shall point with pride to the good lives we thought we led before the bottle cut us down. Because, we were living such a good life before we started drinking. And there was no reason in our minds that we were not sick in the mind before we started drinking. So why did you start drinking in the first place? You know what I mean? It's that is the nature of the beast. Okay, so it's like what this is saying is self-righteousness, grandiosity, okay, is the reaction of when we are trying to put down on paper there our character defects and the things that are wrong with our person. Okay, and people want to say, I wasn't always a loser, like before I started drinking, man, my life was really good. But it's like alcoholism and drug addiction makes you what? Forget that you had a problem that drove you to drinking and using in the first place. That's what this means. And then they get offended because we're like, okay, well, you should just do the inventory. And they don't think that they need to because they think that there's nothing wrong with them. But any addiction it's an addiction in the mind and the body. It will consume you and it blinds you. It completely blinds you. And that's why they say you find a higher power, you find God, because God is able to take them blinders off of you and soften your heart so you can welcome the fact that you've done these things that were wrong and you are willing to accept it and move forward and try to right your wrongs and try to fix yourself. And it's just important that we don't act self-righteous because that that's not it. That is a bad character defect. We shall claim that our serious character defects, if we think we have any at all, have been caused chiefly by excessive drinking. Okay. We believe that our one-time good characters will be revived the moment we quit alcohol. If we were pretty nice people all along, except for our drinking, what need is there for moral inventory now that we are sober? Come on, folks, get it together. Just because you quit drinking, all right, that makes you a dry drunk, okay? And you are going to be, some people might be able to do it. I wasn't one of them. There's millions of people who are also not one of them. But if you are one of them, my hat's off to you. But I'm going to tell you, odds are, if you just quit drinking and you continue to live your life like you are white knuckling it, you are miserable, and your friends, family, and loved ones probably still resent you for the things that you've done. There's empty space in conversations where there should be mending. And you should definitely work a program, even if it's for a short time, even if it's just for the time to get your steps out of the way and mend your family and find your God. At least do that part. Okay. We firmly believe that our present anxieties and troubles, we cry, are caused by the behavior of other people. People who really need a moral inventory because we're not the problem, right? We firmly believe that if only they'd treat us better, we'd be all right. We aren't the guilty ones. They are. I'm sure you've probably heard that. And you probably felt that way, you know. But that's why I said you have to, find you got to do your inventory on, like I said about me being drinking and going into that house. If I didn't go into that house, I wouldn't have been put in that situation. So I have to even it out. You know what I mean? I have to let that go and accept my part. We are not saints. It says in the big book, we are just willing to grow along spiritual lines. We want spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. It's just it's a program of action, and I can speak in bumper stickers. I don't know. So, talking freely and easily and without exhibitionism about his own defects, past and present. This calm yet realistic stock taking is immensely reassuring. The sponsor probably points out that the newcomer has some assets which can be noted along with his liabilities. This tends to clear away morbidity, yeah, and encourage balance. Like I said, as soon as he begins to be more objective, the newcomer can fearlessly, rather than fearfully, look at his own defects. And, the sponsor of those who feel they need no inventory are confronted with quite another problem. This is because people who are driven by pride and self unconsciously blind themselves to their liabilities. These newcomers scarcely need comforting. The problem is to help them discover a chink in the walls their ego has built, through which the light of reason can shine. So I find that really important. When you are doing this, and that, like, this is definitely not a program to work by yourself. Okay, you definitely need to find a sponsor and work this program. Okay, because when you find a sponsor, your initial meet and greet is usually the sponsor will tell you a kind of like a rough summary of their experience, strength, and hope. Okay, and that experience is what leads you to feel okay about being open, honest, and willing to share your, you know, what do you call them? your character defects and your shortcomings, and the things you've done in your life that were wrong to others, and the things that you've done that were disgraceful to yourself as well. And that's why it's important to work with a sponsor on it, because we can get stuck. Okay, uh, we can work, we can do, because we do things, like, I want to say, I get hyper focused on things. All right, it's a bad thing. That is a character defect of mine. It's a blessing and a curse, right? So when I did my 4 step, okay, I got so hyper focused on it that um, I worked so hard on myself that I literally drove myself into the ground. I was doing this without a sponsor. Not a good idea, because I didn't have the sponsor to balance out my, what I just wanted to figure out all the things I had done wrong, and I wanted to write it, but I didn't look at the positives, right? So if you are just doing the bad and you don't have a sponsor to help uplift you in the good, then it can be counterproductive. Um, so it's important to work this with somebody. I am only doing this video because sometimes there are people who are just not ready to share everything with other people. And I like to talk more about God in my recovery. And in AA, we mostly talk about a higher power. So in my YouTube, after reading the Bible and stuff, it says to spread the gospel. Okay, and I am not, I am not a theologian or anything like that, but I will tell you, I have the history of an addict and an alcoholic and a bad past, and I have been in 2 bad car accidents. I've had 3 people try to kill me and was almost successful. And I died for 4 minutes in a heart attack, and I'm still here. So God has graced me. He has given me so much mercy. And now that I have that He's given me this opportunity to live. I can't be a preacher, but I can learn the word, and I can talk about God through recovery. So that is my way of um, carrying the message in the best way that I know how. So, so if you're watching this video, strongly suggest finding a sponsor. If you need a sponsor, and uh, I can put my email in the chat, and you can email me. I won't sponsor a man, but I will sponsor women. Just I'll put my email in the chat before I end this one. Okay. All right. So next, something had to be done about our vengeful resentment, self pity, and unwarranted pride. We had to see that we harbored grudges and planned revenge for such defeats. We were really beating ourselves with the club of anger we had intended to use on others. So really, it's like, you know, good example. So my sponsor, all right, I'm gonna use one of her stories as an example. Anonymity is okay if it's shared among other alcoholics and addicts, for the record. So she was drunk and got upset with somebody and figured, well, I'll show you, and drove her car into a tree. So when it says, um, we are really beating ourselves with the club of anger we intended to use on others. Really, I mean, it's like, I'm mad at you, so I'll show you. I'm gonna go wreck my car into a tree, and I'm gonna break bones. I'm gonna hurt myself. I mean, we do it, and we cannot be. We don't have the element of surprise. So, in addiction, we are not allowed that because we're just not. To see how erratic emotions victimized us often took a long time. We could perceive them quickly in others, but only slowly in ourselves. So there's that verse in the Bible that says, before you remove the plank out of somebody else's eye, remove the tree out of yours. Don't sweep somebody else's porch before you sweep your own. That's pretty much what it's saying, because I can always pick out your character defects without a problem. But as for myself, you know, that's why sponsorship's important. Um, we need to drop the word blame from our speech and thought. Some will become quiet. Some will become quite annoyed if there is talk about immorality, let alone sin. But all who are at least reasonable will agree upon one point, that there is plenty wrong with us alcoholics, addicts, people in recovery, about which plenty will have to be done if we are to expect sobriety, progress, and the real ability to cope with life. To avoid falling into confusion over the names these defects should be called, let's take a universally recognized list of major human failings. The seven deadly sins of pride, greed, lust, anger, gluttony, envy, and sloth. It is not by accident that pride leads or heeds the procession, for pride, leading to self justification and always spurred by conscious or unconscious fears, is the basic breeder of most human difficulties. The chief block to true progress. Pride lures us into making demands upon ourselves or upon others which cannot be met without perverting or misusing our God given instincts. When the satisfaction of our instincts for sex, security, and social society becomes the sole object of our lives, then pride steps in to justify our excesses. All these failings generate fear, a soul sickness in its own right, you know, and that's true. Fear is it will rule you. Then fear in turn generates more character defects. Unrealistic will not be satisfied drives us to covet the possessions of others, to lust for sex and power, to become angry when our instincts demands are threatened, to be envious when the ambitions of others seem to be realized while ours are not. We eat, drink, and grab for more of everything than we need, fearing we shall never have enough. Greed. And with genuine effect of work, we stay lazy. We loaf and procrastinate, or at best, work grudgingly and under half steam. These fears are the termites and ceaselessly devour the foundations of whatever sort of life we try to build. I'm going to read that last sentence again. These fears are the termites and ceaselessly devour the foundations that whatever sort of life we try to build. Okay. So, as we persist, a brand new kind of confidence is born, and a sense of relief at finally facing ourselves is indescribable. These are the first fruits of the fourth step. Fruits, all right? They talk about being fruitful. In, the Bible, it talks about, like my pastor, these past couple weeks has talked about the roots, in which we build or which our tree is built and our fruit grows. So if you are grounded and your root system is good, and you're solid in the word, and you're learning how to cope with life, and to be a good model citizen, and to live righteously, not self-righteously, but how God expects you to live. If you also read the Sermon on the Mount, that is what Philip Michael Anthony says is the best way of life possible. It is like he says, the manuscript of the best life possible. So, next, moving forward. When and how and in just what instances did my selfish pursuit of the sex relation damage other people and me? I let other people feel used, and that was the answer to my question. All right, what people were hurt and how badly? I'm sure that it messed with their self-esteem, and now they have a four step to do on their sex relations. Like they probably felt really stupid that I got one over on them, or I may have hurt their heart because I made it seem like I had more feelings for them than I actually did. So it's that deceiving. It's not something I'm proud of, but it is part of my story. And you know, did I spoil my marriage and injure my children? Yes, I did. Did I jeopardize my standing in the community? Just how did I react to these situations at the time? Did I burn with a guilt that nothing could extinguish? Yes. Or did I insist that I was the pursued and not the pursuer, and thus absolve myself? Yes, I was the victim and I never did any wrong. That was how I felt. How have I reacted to frustration in sexual matters? When denied, did I become vengeful or depressed? Yes, I did. I mean, how dare you? Why would you, how could you deny me? Did I take it out on other people? Of course I did. If there was rejection or coldness at home, did I use this as a reason for promiscuity, being promiscuous? Yes, I did. And that was what I mean by jumping from one person to the next and doing whatever I wanted to do. In addition to my drinking problem, what character defects contributed to my financial instability? Did fear and inferiority about my fitness for my job destroy my confidence and fill me with conflict? Did I try to cover up those feelings of inadequacy by bluffing, cheating, lying, or evading responsibility? Or by gripping that others failed to recognize my truly exceptional abilities? Did I overvalue myself and play the big shot? Did I have such unprincipled ambition that I double crossed and undercut my associates? Was I extravagant? Did I recklessly borrow money Yeah. Carrying, caring little whether it was repaid or not. Was I pinch penny refusing to support my family properly? Did I cut corners financially? What about the quick money deals in stock market and the races? This one I feel like is important. Business women in AA will naturally find that many of these questions apply to them too. But the alcoholic housewife can also make the family financially insecure. She can juggle charge accounts, manipulate the food budget, spend her afternoons gambling, and run her husband into debt by irresponsibility, waste, and extravagance. But, okay, goodness, I didn't think I had this much left. All right, I'm sorry, I'm about to wrap this up, guys. And I'll do the recovery on the next video. The most common symptoms of emotional insecurity are worry, anger, self pity, and depression. To take inventory in this respect, we ought to consider carefully all personal relationships which brings continuous or recurring trouble. Looking at both past and present, what sex situations have caused me anxiety, bitterness, frustration, or depression? Appraising each situation fairly, can I see where I have been at fault? Did these perplexities beset me because of selfishness or unreasonable demands? Or if my disturbances was seemingly caused by the behavior of others, why do I lack the ability to accept conditions I cannot change? God grant me the serenity to accept, or, you know, the, why am I not able to think of that? God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the willing, or in the wisdom to know the difference. Oh my gosh, I see this in all my meetings. I can't even think of it. Okay. Acceptance, willingness. All right. It's important. Am I willing to make the measures necessary to shape my life to conditions as they are? Either we insist upon dominating the people we know, or we depend on them far too much. Codependency. If we lean too heavily on people, they will sooner or later fail us because of our high expectations. For they are human too and cannot possibly meet our incessant demands. In this way, our insecurity grows and festers. When we habitually try to manipulate others to our own willful desires, they revolt and resist us heavily. Then we develop hurt feelings, a sense of persecution, and a desire to retaliate. As we redouble our efforts to control and continue to fail, our suffering becomes acute and consistent. This is it. It will be the first tangible evidence of our complete willingness to move forward if we do a searching and fearless moral inventory and to be willing and honest. Okay. I'm putting my email in the chat. And if you need a sponsor or meeting guide or just any resources. Okay, that sums that up. I'm going to finish it with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the thine is the power, the kingdom, and the glory forever. I can't even say it right. Gosh, I don't know what is wrong with me today. Like my brain is like fried. Long-term use of drugs and alcohol. This is it. All right. Thank you. And I will see you on the next video, and we will do the questions from the Life Bible and the workbook. Thank you.